In this update of the Ozbourne Foreman show, I'm going to be talking about Boohoo stock and in particular taking on a SWOT analysis. This was a request from a viewer. This person here asked if I could do a SWOT analysis on Boohoo, and I thought, you know what, this would actually be quite a fun idea as it's something I did many years ago when I was at school doing business. So I figure, you know what, let's go back for old time's sake and let's talk about Boohoo stock in this update of this video. So we're going to start by talking about the strengths. If you don't know what SWOT is, it's not SWAT from Halo, although that was a great game mode. This is where you talk about the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Some of the strengths, some of the weaknesses are obviously going to be industry related as well, so I'll highlight them as and when needed, but I do also want to keep this video quite brief. Firstly, Boohoo's strength is that they can have a low cost. They're a volumes-based business, which in my opinion is relatively recession-proof. As long as they're able to maintain sales and build volumes, then they'll do very well as a business. This type of business model where they're offering low price goods to customers is very attractive to a wider range of customers. In particular, their target audience is 16 to 34-year-old and mainly female. Now, in a recession, these people are not likely going to cut back, or if they do cut back on their spending on fashion, they're going to go down the chain. They're going to go, look, I still want new clothing, I still want to impress my friends, therefore, what can I do in this situation? Well, actually, what I'll do is I'll stop buying from the likes of the more premium brands and I'll start buying from Primark and Boohoo. This puts Boohoo in a very good spot as their marginal propensity to consume is relatively strong in that regard. In terms of the industry themselves, a strength is that they have better availability and typically a wider range of products. Now, that's not to say they don't have products out of stock. They certainly can, but they don't certainly need it immediately on the shelves, if that makes sense. So they don't need to make the stock pre-made. So what they can do is they can sort of test the demand without the physical requirement for the goods. Unlike, for instance, a high street store where you will need the clothing obviously in store for the customer to be able to try it on and see what they think of it. At least with Boohoo and other online retailers of clothing, they're able to basically put up a listing, have only, let's say, 20 items of that clothing, and then if it's popular, they can repeat, they can supply more and facilitate that demand. It makes them a very agile business and it makes them have lower levels of inventory, which puts them at a strong position. Now, furthermore, they also have a very strong social media presence. They have millions of followers on Instagram and obviously Twitter. Now, this is good for them because it is effectively passive advertisement. The larger your social media following, typically if you've also got a good engagement relative to that percentage of your following, then this means you don't have to pay as much on the likes of advertising, which is advantageous, as I can say, and it's a strength for Boohoo because it basically means that their audience, or not their audience, but their consumers, are already engaging in the posts that are available. And the good thing, or the clever thing about Boohoo's branding online is that they're more of a personality rather than that of a business. They're always talking about relatable memes. Well, not relatable to me anyway, because I'm a bit different. I'm just built different. What can I say, Keith? Keith agrees. But in this situation, there's some relatable memes typically towards their consumer audience. I do think they are quite good. Now, let's jump straight into the weaknesses. Obviously, weakness number one is that they're going to have a higher returns rate. And now, this is industry-wide, but it's not exclusive to Boohoo, but certainly those of online retailers are going to see customers returning their products. This is because, obviously, you can't try them on in store. You can't ensure it's a perfect fit. You can't, obviously, ensure the quality before it's delivered to your door. And therefore, by default, they're going to have a high level of return. That combined with the type of customer, especially those in Boohoo's consumer base of a younger age, more likely to try and get away with this, less money available, what they're going to do is they're going to order multiple sizes of a dress or multiple variations of a dress, choose the one they like the most, or even in the most extreme cases, they'll end up wearing this item of clothing and then return it the next day once they've worn it. Now, obviously, there's not much that can be done against this, and Boohoo has recently added a charge to their delivery, which has caused a very minor uproar, if you can even call it that, probably a squeak, to be honest, and it'll be interesting to see how this impacts volumes over the future, but again, we won't know that really until we see their next trading update, but certainly a concern, whereas you've got the likes of Primark, where at least they've got to go into store to return the goods. There's another level of quality control right there. Now, a weakness exclusive to Boohoo is that they've got a very poor governance. This has improved slightly over the last 2 years, but because it's a family-owned business, as in the family own quite a large stake in the business and have a lot of control, especially as the chairman, the co-founder Mahmood Kamani, obviously holds a 12.5% stake in the business, this is of some concern. And in the past, they've done some pretty weird things. I mean, don't get me wrong, if I was in their position, I was that rich, I'd be doing the same thing. They were going to parties amongst the pandemic restrictions, but again, It's a free world, let them do what they want. But at the same time, it didn't obviously cause that great of a sentiment amongst shareholders and obviously towards their business. So it reflects the idea that these people don't really care enough. And obviously we've seen some aggressive plays in the past where Boohoo has acquired Pretty Little Thing. They acquired 66% of that stake for about £2 to £3 million a few years before, and then a few years later decided to acquire that last third of that stake for like £300 million, or valued it at effectively that price. Now, interestingly as well, the son of the father, I think this was Umar Kamani, had actually owned quite a large stake in that business. So effectively what they'd done here is they'd bought Pretty Little Thing for a premium, or so we believe, and what they'd done is pretty much made money leave the business and into the hands of the family, which isn't really what you want to see as a shareholder, despite the quality that Pretty Little Thing adds to the value of the brand. Now, the app itself is good. It's simple, but it is a weakness for Boohoo, and this is because they're just not innovative enough. Whilst, yes, it can facilitate the demand that they want, the problem is with it is it lacks in, as I say, innovation like Shein's app. Shein is a Chinese competitor, and what they've got is they've got quite a cool reward system in place. Based on your deliveries, your purchases, it builds up reward points. Signing in each day, I believe, as well, also builds up reward points. So it promotes loyalty, it promotes engagement on their app, and it also means that these reward points can be used to buy more clothing, which again is something Boohoo doesn't quite capitalize on at the moment, and hopefully they will in the future, because that is certainly something they should do, considering they already offer the goods at a good price point as well. And I suppose another negative of the app is that it's always spamming notifications, and I suppose as someone that is quite aware as a shopper, I'm very conscious that there's always an ongoing discount or sale, and therefore it doesn't feel like a discount or sale. It's probably just the normal retail price, therefore I'm not really buying as much. But again, to other people this might be exciting and they might be trying to buy new things all the time. Now, an opportunity here is that they're transitioning to an online marketplace. In particular, they're expanding into beauty with the recent acquisition of Debenhams. This widens their product offering, and we can see this transition over the future as they begin to become an online e-commerce giant where they're retailing various different goods. An expansion into beauty is a very good start. It's a very high profit margin industry, and if they can really push out further and see success, they've already got the infrastructure available to do next day delivery, and they could be a key competitor to some of the online brands we're already seeing. Now, I'm not saying here that Boohoo could certainly outcompete Amazon, because quite frankly, Amazon is an absolute Goliath, especially with their web services that subsidize any of their marketplace that they need to. But there is certainly potential here for Boohoo to take up some market share in that space, especially in the fashion place as well as beauty. That said, there's also an opportunity here with long-term growth, because their management in this way is quite clever, and they have got experienced management. It's just the governments that is a bit of an issue. The likes of them, what they're doing is they're investing long-term. They're putting lots of investments into infrastructure, or their capital expenditure is going into infrastructure and automation of their current warehousing system, which means they'll be able to, in future, be able to facilitate a higher level of sales, but also perhaps also reach a higher or faster delivery times, which is advantageous in this type of industry, as the quicker you can get the product to the customer, the more satisfied they are, and the more likely they are to shop with you, versus that of another online retailer, or even that of the high street competitors, because of the convenience factor. And they've also got a lot of high growth potential in the United States, as they have a very, very small market share. And if they can get the infrastructure set up, they could certainly dominate a lot over there, with a very similar outlook on styles and fashion. Now, there are quite a few threats here. The first one is the continued green agenda. Now, you look at me, I'm not a very green person. I've got a fake plant behind me that likely kills more plants than it exists for, whereas a normal plant would absorb carbon dioxide. Furthermore, I'm wearing all Boohoo clothing, or at least Burton. And yes, I wear pretty much all black. Not now. I'm recording. Yes. Oh, you've really thrown me off. Another threat is the continued green agenda. Now, this is leading to greater potential regulation. Now, you might have noticed, yeah, I'm not a very green person. I'm not that big of a fan of that movement. For instance, I have a fake plant behind me that has probably more plastic in it and probably causes more problems for the environment than an actual real plant. Furthermore, I'm always wearing cheap clothing, or that of the likes of Burton, which is, again, a subsidiary of Boohoo, which means I'm not too bothered about the environment and all of that. That said, it is certainly something on the minds of a lot of individuals, especially especially that of Boohoo's target consumer range, so this is certainly a threat for the future. This could lead to more scrutiny, more people closely examining Boohoo's procedures like they have recently about their supply chain and the modern-day slavery accusations, but this could lead to greater regulation, and regulation isn't necessarily good, as it could eat into their gross margins here and likely be a threat for the existence of the business. It's not something I'm worrying about too much, as they are looking to become more sustainable as a business, and I think it's typically the agenda of a lot of businesses at the moment, but there's nothing to say that rules and regulations could come in place that impact them over time. Now, they've also got, at the moment, supply chain disruption, and this could continue onwards, which is a threat towards them. Supply chain disruption means that they've got extended delivery times. They've also got higher costs of delivery. Now, this is an issue because, obviously, the Boohoo's attractiveness is their price point. If they have low-cost, free delivery, next-day delivery, you're going to buy with them, very likely. However, if you've now got low-cost good, delivery costs alongside extended delivery times of a few weeks, that attractive item you wanted to buy if you're going out tomorrow is no longer going to be attractive, and it's just going to be, what's the point of ordering at Boohoo instead of China or the likes of Shein, where you can order it, get it in 2-3 weeks at an even cheaper price of a similar quality. And I suppose, speaking about competition, Shein is certainly a threat. It's not something I'm too concerned with, but it is certainly a threat to the industry. Boohoo has established a market share and dominance in the UK, so I'm not worried about Shein coming into the UK and taking up too much market share, because I think Boohoo is well positioned compared to other members in the industry. That said, they do fall behind to those other members in the industry in terms of quality. Now, I've heard it, and I've not really felt it from experience, because I have felt that Boohoo's quality is decent, but I have heard from a lot of the girls that I speak to. Oh yeah, I talk to girls. Do I? Am I lying? I could be. But anyway, of the girls that I speak to, they seem to go, yeah, Boohoo's clothing is very thin, it's very cheap, and it's not very long lasting, for instance. They like the designs, but it doesn't last very long, so they're not too happy with that, and they usually go elsewhere. That said, when I ask them where else they go, they typically talk about Pretty Little Thing and other various brands like ASOS as well. So again, it's not going too far, but something to be of comment. Now, I've not heard too much comments between Shein's quality and that of Boohoo's, so I guess I lack in that knowledge, but typically Boohoo has a bit of a reputation for not having as high of a quality compared to other online retailers, especially in the UK. Now, Boohoo is something I hold a lot of shares of. I currently hold 17,796 shares at an average price of £1.39 per share. I'm currently underwater on this position by about 54%. I'm continuing to buy because I believe in its long-term aspects, but at the same time, I'm remaining perhaps balanced. I'm looking at the negatives and the positives and deciding if I would buy at this current price, is it worthwhile? For me, I believe so at the moment, but the underlying fundamentals may change, and my perspective on this may change as well. Thank you for watching. Have a fantastic day.